Monday, February 10th, 2025. Got it right, I think. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Councilmember Fairley.
Here.
Councilmember Osborne. And Councilmember Thomas.
I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Thomas and Councilmember Osborne.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Oh, I second. All right.
We ain't got many people here.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Number 4, presentations. Item A. 2026-2035 Water Resource Inventory Area, WRIA 9 Interlocal Agreement presentation by Matt.
All right.
Let's see. That is here.
All right, so I think the presentation's in your packet.
Yes.
My name is Matt Goring. I'm the Salmon Recovery Manager for RIA 9, which is the Green Duwamish and Central Puget Sound watershed. So today, just want to kind of give an overview of kind of the context for your consideration of the interlocal agreement extension from 2026 to 2035. The current interlocal agreement expires at the end of 2025. So we'll go over just kind of the background, the context for salmon recovery within our watershed, what's in the salmon habitat plan, an overview of what's the purpose of this ILA, because most, I'm sure, weren't around to consider the ILA at its last iteration in 2015. Then we'll go over kind of what's our funding sources for salmon recovery in this watershed, some of our accomplishments, and then I look forward to what's coming up in the next 10 years. So, if you flip to the slide on the salmon recovery timeline, it should be no surprise the decline of Puget Sound Chinook salmon over time, starting with the arrival of the railroad, population development. You had, the dredge and fill and industrialization of the Duwamish, lost about 97% of the historic estuary habitat. Fast forward to, the rerouting of the White River into the Puyallup, the Cedar River, and Lake Washington out the locks instead of flowing into the Black River Pump Station, culminating with the listing of Puget Sound Chinook under the Endangered Species Act in 1998. That kind of prompted the development of the recovery plan. We first adopted the original Green Duwamish and Central Puget Sound recovery plan in 2005. That has most recently been updated in 2021. So in terms of kind of overall numbers in the watershed, historically there were probably around 40,000 Chinook returning to the Green Duwamish every year. That dropped in, what year was that? 2009 to less than 200. Things have stabilized a bit since then. We're, generally between 1,000, 5,000 wild fish returning. If you just look at that slide, that's generally our short-term target, between 1,000 and 4,200 fish returning annually. But when we look at our long-term recovery plan goal, what's established by the feds, that's 27,000. So we're nowhere close to kind of the long-term recovery goal. So the Salmon Recovery Act of 1998, that established this framework for salmon recovery, not only in our watershed, but across the state. And they call it the Washington Way. So when there was the original listing under the Endangered Species Act, there was a lot of concern of, hey, we're going to get top-down regulation, land use and things by the feds to kind of protect and restore Chinook salmon. So what was done through that legislative act was it it established this local controls. We worked with the feds, and NOAA Fisheries. It established the governor's salmon recovery office. They developed these regions, 8 of them across the state based on populations of fish. And we obviously fall in the Puget Sound region. So that gave the region kind of the shot at local control to develop this recovery plan for salmon. And at the backbone of that recovery plan are these local lead entities or watersheds. And that's essentially what RIA 9 is. And so RIA 9 is the lead entity tasked with developing not only the local watershed plan, but also prioritizing those habitat projects and getting the local buy-in to support implementation of this plan within the watershed. And so next slide is just a map of the watershed. Just to give you context of what we're looking at in this watershed, it extends from Elliott Bay in Seattle, all of Vashon Island, down to Federal Way, and then all the way up to the Cascade Crest. You can see, obviously, a hugely diverse watershed. You have the industrial core, the Duwamish, the lower Green Valley, and then it moves more into kind of rural agriculture as you move upstream of the city of Auburn and here. And then the upper watershed is largely in forest production. And so the overall goal of our watershed plan and the RIA 9 partnership, which spans 17 local governments in this watershed, really is working, understanding that, hey, salmon don't understand these kind of jurisdictional boundaries that are spanning across the watershed. And we take this holistic watershed approach and say, hey, if we're going to do invest in salmon recovery in this watershed, let's do the best projects in the watershed, regardless of jurisdictional boundary. Let's do what's best for actually supporting recovery of salmon. So the next slide just gives you a snapshot of what's in that salmon plan. It is an assessment of what is the current status of Chinook salmon. It looks at best available science. What do we know about fish in the watershed? What do we know about the habitat needs? And what do we know about the projects we've already built? What's worked, what's not worked, what needs tweaking? Then it establishes habitat goals that are science-based. Like, what do we need if we're going to achieve recovery? What do we need in terms of different types of habitat? And then the recovery strategies that ultimately are going to get us there. And then the core of the plan really is this capital project list. And this is over 100 capital projects up and down the watershed aimed at restoring habitat for Chinook salmon. And then finally, a monitoring and adaptive management plan. We're going to invest in this. We need to know how are we doing, and when we build projects, we want to know, okay, what worked, what didn't, so we don't make the same mistakes and we constantly improve on delivering effective projects moving forward. So the next slide really is that overview of the ILA. So we have the salmon habitat plan, right? Science-based plan. Well, the ILA is targeting, it is this kind of joint commitment to implementing and adaptively managing that salmon habitat plan. So it provides a governance structure. We have a watershed ecosystem forum that meets quarterly. It's comprised of elected officials and higher level managers of the city jurisdictions, 17 jurisdictions. Also includes federal, state partners, NGOs, business interests like Boeing has a seat at the table. And I'll just highlight that, Algona seat currently is vacant. The previous public works director sat on it. So if any of you are interested, we'd love to have elected official participation. Again, you're not expected to attend everyone. There's often a elected representative and then a staff alternate, whatever works for you, but certainly we can follow up on that if there's interest. But it really is a group based on consensus-based decision-making, right? We're looking to get everyone to the table and come up with consensus-based recommendations for implementing the plan. And within the ILA, there's a funding mechanism. So how do we support this implementation of the plan? And so we have a core staff. So I'm a King County employee for administrative purposes, but I'm just as much report to you as any of the other jurisdictions in the city. So I like to highlight that hey, you know, this whole watershed funds a core staff. So we have myself, salmon recovery manager, we have a technical coordinator, which you can think of as like a technical advisor, and then we have a habitat projects coordinator, who really is the brain behind developing a funding strategy to support implementation of these projects. And then every year we develop an annual work plan and a budget. And so the first ILA was a 5-year ILA that started in 2001, and that was aimed at getting that original habitat plan completed, and that was completed in 2005. Then we had 2 subsequent 10-year renewals. The most recent one that expires at the end of this year. So in terms of what do we do, what's in the work plan? So we have the watershed coordination services. That's the coordination of the governing body. We also integrate and represent the watershed at more regional planning forums, like with the Puget Sound Partnership and the Washington Council of Regions. That's the statewide entity. We do project coordination and development with our partners. That's developing the funding strategy, prioritizing the salmon projects for implementation, prioritizing, running a grant round. We do an annual grant round to support projects put forth by our partners. We also have a monitoring and adaptive management plan that we're working to implement, and we run a implementation technical committee, which really is kind of the more technical underpinnings of project development and monitoring that's happening in the watershed, and they ultimately provide recommendations to that more decision-making body, which is the Watershed Ecosystem Forum. And then finally, we fund in this watershed a few partial funders, a few basin stewards, and those are individuals that are working with jurisdictions, with NGOs to further define and refine project ideas and concepts. And so the next slide looks at our 2025 funding. So with the ILA, that's our core kind of, you can think of it as operational funds largely. We have about $600,000 that comes in annually there. That is split amongst those 17 local government partners based on a cost share that's calculated as the average of what's the percent, what's this individual, what's Algona's percent of the population in the watershed, their percent of the total assessed value in the watershed, and then their percent of the total land area within the watershed. So as you can imagine, Algona comes out to a fairly small cost share, but it's one of the 17 local government partners, and the cost share for this year is a little over $1,000. And then in terms of grant funding for our annual grant round, the bulk of our funding comes from the Cooperative Watershed Management Program, King County Flood Control District. So we get $4.2 million to support plan implementation from them. That's largely pass-through grants to partners in terms of capital habitat projects, revegetation work along streams, research and monitoring work, education and outreach. And then we also get a series of grants from the state, and that includes about $1.1 million from the Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration Program. That's a biennial pass-through grant. And then we get $300,000 annually from the State Salmon Recovery Fund. Next slide. In terms of accomplishments, in total, you know, we've been at this now for 25 years. Our partners have invested more than $200 million in the watershed in terms of land conservation and habitat restoration. This has resulted in more than 3.5 miles of levee being set back and floodplain being reconnected to build habitat. That picture on the slide on the right, that's Lower Russell Road Park, the city of Kent. That was a
That's on the green, correct?
Yeah, that was, over a mile of levee setback, involved redevelopment of a park, habitat features, $57 million price tag. We're talking, some of these projects are big projects, and that's not, that wasn't just a habitat project, right? There were habitat components, but a big lift of that was, they wanted to go up to 500-year flood protection, in the Kent Valley. And so that stretch of it, was identified, hey, we have an opportunity to actually build it higher to provide the flood protection, but also set it back so we can build habitat and, build a new park.
So about tributaries to the green?
Yes, so Mill Creek, flows through Algona. We funded a series of projects on Mill Creek,
You just never have made it down through Auburn.
yeah. Well, we've done some projects in Auburn.
Never made it down here because we flood every year.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we need to do. You go in, where the Mill Creek start, I used to turn Mill Creek starts here in Algona.
Yeah.
And my Fifth Avenue,
Yeah.
our Fifth Avenue, goes to the end of town and stops.
Huh.
And at the other end of that, there's two big retention ponds in Auburn that are filled. And then there's a, the big square, oh my gosh, I can't think of what's real.
Box culvert?
Yeah,
Box culvert?
there's a big box culvert where it's all supposed to go into this bulk culvert. Box culvert's full. Then you go across underneath 18, the culverts are clean, but it's so crammed up on the other side that DOT, for number one lane on, you're gonna wish you never said this in front of me. The number one lane on Highway 18, it goes under 167, floods.
Yeah.
So they got to stick pumps in over there.
Huh.
But Mill Creek doesn't go anywhere from here, it stops in Auburn. And so last year we flooded 43 homes. This year we worked on being able to move the water. We bought there's three big fields at the end of town. We bought those. So we figured out a way to get some of the water to go over there to avert flood people's homes. If we could get that, what I'd be thrilled to see is to get that so it flows all the way through and have salmon habitat.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Mill Creek stopped down in Auburn. It then flows south into the green.
Right.
North into the green.
Right.
But I didn't realize it stopped.
Well, it starts here, right where it starts.
Yeah, I knew it started here. I didn't know it stopped.
But it stops at the end of town. There's nowhere to go except for backwards whenever we get a big rain. Food for thought.
Yes,
I don't know
that's
if you can,
definitely.
if you can help me some.
The
help us.
other thing I would say, I'm not sure if you're aware, but a couple years ago, the Flood Control District started a flood reduction grant program. And so they've set aside annual grant.
I'm on the flood control
Okay,
board now,
okay.
but it's hard for us to get any funding because most of that funding are for huge major projects. And so we stumble against it. Well, maybe you and I can at some point, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, be happy to talk about it because we have seen some smaller jurisdictions like Des Moines and others be successful at getting for smaller creek flood reduction grants.
No, well, I don't care about that. I mean, I care about flood reduction, but it's actual habitat.
Yeah.
We got beautiful habitat out there.
Yeah, I drove by the wetland.
Yeah,
Wetland project.
yeah, but over here, it's 15 feet wide, it's deep, and we're real particular how we keep the sites and shoot the fish. But we don't have any fish in there because we can't keep it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I will, yeah.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's
It's
information to
it's
me.
all-
I didn't realize it didn't flow through.
I can be glad when if you can set an appointment there, if you can get time right to set an appointment. We have 186 pages of time, like you just.
Yeah, okay. So then, looking forward, you probably have seen, you all know Howard Hanson serves a major flood reduction role. It was built in the 1960s. In 2019, the federal government, NOAA Fisheries, released a biological opinion that said, hey, continued operation of this dam without fish passage jeopardizes Puget Sound Chinook as well as orca whale recovery. And it directed the Army Corps of Engineers to build a fish passage facility much like was just completed at Lead Mountain Dam, on the Puyallup. So that set a deadline of 2031, to get that fish passage, the Army Corps to build that fish passage. And it's also linked to the secondary water storage project, the Tacoma Water, up there. It's required to access that additional flood storage or drinking water storage capacity. And so upstream of that dam is about 100 miles of salmon habitat that's been inaccessible since the 1960s. So it's a huge price, it's got a huge price tag, and that's the thing that's caught most people eye, is it was estimated to be around $850 million to build that. In the last 2 years, $270 million has been appropriated from the federal government to the Army Corps. They've signed a design build contract underway. The former president had put in the draft budget another $500 million and would have largely made that project whole. We'll see. It has bipartisan support because it's obviously tied to flood protection and water security. But that's something that's on the radar. It's been since 2005 the top project in the habitat plan. There's not any other project that can get you 100 miles of habitat that's largely intact. And it's recognized as one of the biggest potential habitat gains in all of Puget Sound. So something to keep an eye on. Actually, at our forum meeting next week, or actually this week, sorry, Thursday, the Army Corps is coming to give a presentation and an update on the design of that fish passage facility. And so with that, really, I'll turn it over to all of you to see if you have any questions regarding any of this material presented or the ILA. There is a copy of the ILA text within your packet as well. Yeah.
My question's gonna sound pretty elemental or something, but do the fish have not been able to go to any of these places in 20 or 30 years, right? Will they remember how to go back to,
Yeah, it's amazing with some of the habitat work done, how quick fish recolonize areas. There was a levee setback project upstream of Auburn called Loans Levee. They pulled the levee. I was there a week later. There were salmon spawning in there. They'll pull it. It may take time for large numbers to get up there once they get the passage, but fish will find a way. It's amazing how resilient they are. There's a creek called Longfellow Creek in West Seattle. There's about a quarter-mile pipe that goes under the port of Seattle to a creek. Well, they swim through a pipe for a quarter of a mile to get up there. So pretty resilient, not saying that's great for them, and it definitely reduces survival and things like that, but there are fish that make it through and successfully spawn going through something like that.
It's like the new walkway, when I walked along the waterfront, all those glass tiles, I didn't know what they were for. And they were the glass tiles, so they'd be light as the fish run up along that.
Yeah, that was one of the things they did when they rebuilt the seawall, like trying to make it more fish friendly. So there's little habitat benches in there and stuff.
I imagine removing that dam, the Eagle Dam, I think.
Oh, that's on the Puyallup, yeah.
And that's I understand the fishing.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, and so that would be, we're here today talking about the RIA 9, which is the Green New Ramish. RIA 10, which is a similar local entity that's charged with managing implementation of the salmon habitat plan in RIA 10. And they do not have an ILA structure. The ILA structure is something unique within King County. There are 3 ILAs for Green New Ramish, the Cedar, Lake Sammamish, and then this one.
I think the cost of the city, benefits totally outweigh the cost. I mean, it's $1,079 in benefits to the city, especially, if we can get the Mill Creek, get the fish, I've been here since '96, and at no time there was fish. I haven't seen any of them all. So,
Well, I appreciate hearing that. I mean, it's been, I've been a part of the watershed, as a staff for 7 years. And I previously was a state Department of Natural Resources representative on the Watershed Ecosystem Forum, probably 5 years prior to that. And it's really a cool success story of, here we are 25 years later, and, we're, these quarterly meetings, we're getting elected officials, we're getting, senior level managers showing up and, being invested in this. And, $1,000 is still $1,000, right? And then you look at, some of these cost shares go up to $150,000. And, I think, no one's ever blinked at, the commitment to this. And it's really cool to see the, with doing this and, reaching out to Jessica, how quickly you guys get it on the agenda. It's, like I said, it's really rewarding to see the collective care and interest in salmon recovery in this watershed.
When was the first time we were part of that? I know we're,
2001.
so that's we were down.
Yeah.
I've never, in the
And I'll go,
12, 14
I can
years,
send it, I'll send it to you.
I'll give you my card, I'll give you some information before you leave, if you got a minute more.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll steal you for a minute after that.
I was part of this 2005.
Okay, so you have it, yeah.
I think it was 2005 to 2000, yeah, 9 or 11 or something like that. I was on the council then. I just came back after 10 years off.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that I think carries significant weight is, we don't do a lot of it, but we write support letters at a time where we reach out and, when we have, so with Howard Hanson Dam and the fish passage, we wrote to the federal delegation. We had, mayors of the jurisdictions on the letter. And we've been told that was, really important in getting that original $250 million chunk.
It's huge.
As well as the bipartisan support of the Washington delegation for that project. So I think that political, having that organization with the longevity, is a political, power in terms of wielding influence.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? All right.
Well, thank you for the time. And do you want me to stay for the full council meeting or no?
You're good. If any questions come up, I'll shoot you.
I'm gonna go chew on his ear for a minute.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys don't need me here.
If I don't come out,
Yeah, we'll check.
Jessica rescued.
Yeah.
She will be here soon, we'll send you back.
Yeah.
Item 5, no discussion items. Item 6, audience participation. The city council encourages public participation during meetings of the city council and welcomes your comment. It's time to set aside for you to speak to the city council on any issues. The council ordinarily takes non-agenda matters under advisement before taking action. You're also invited to comment on action items as they are considered during the meeting. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each when addressing the city council. When addressing the council, please speak clearly, audibly, state your name and address for the record. Do we have anybody online? Don't have anybody in the audience. So